Hi everybody, I'm Tabitha and I've read 5 more books. Today, as it was earlier this month, if you are looking for descriptions of how I rate books or the rating scale that I use, you can now find that at the end of the video. So the easiest way to do that is to check the timestamps in the description down there. The timestamps will give you each book I rated and also let you jump right to that rating scale. But we have a lot of books to cover, so let's get to those books. The next book I read in the month of May was Duckett and Dyer, Dicks for Hire by G.M. Nair. This was independently published by DSDF in 2019. It is an adult age category science fiction, I would call it, and it is 300 pages. Your synopsis. Michael Duckett is fed up with his life and his lazy best friend and roommate, Stephanie Dyer. Plus, someone has been plastering ads for his detective agency, which doesn't exist, all over town. Stephanie loves the idea and drags Michael, usually kicking and screaming, into an adventure that neither of them is soon to forget. So what didn't I like? Well, the first thing I can say I didn't like is the characters felt a little forced. They have these defined personalities, not unlike caricatures, and they will be forced into those roles. I think it's done on purpose. It kind of highlights the brand of comedy that we're going for here, but it grates on me just a little because they're written like caricatures. The second thing I can say I didn't like is that the ending felt rushed. I missed the lesson, if there was a lesson, and I felt like we were sidestepping the chance to kind of make the story tie together a little bit. Now, you know I don't like my endings all wrapped up pretty with a bow, but I would like some resolution to some of the problems, and I felt like this ending needed a little work there. The third thing I can say I wasn't crazy about here is that the voice is awkward. What I mean there is it spends most of the book almost feeling like it's a don't take yourself too seriously, almost middle grade style comedy of like kids pretending to be detectives. That would have worked for that story, but at the same time, these were adults and we're pulling in time travel and then it goes towards kind of murder and things just get really weird. And so it almost felt like it was mentioning sex and gore and murder as a way to remind us that this wasn't a middle grade while not changing that goofy, don't take yourself too seriously middle grade voice. It was awkward. So what did I like about this one? Well, I can say that the spin on the alternate realities thing was not expected. I didn't know we were going to do that going into it, and it worked. I liked it. It was well thought out. You could tell the author had spent some time making sure that that would work and playing with that idea, and so I really liked that. Second thing I liked about this one is that this book is weird, like in a good way. It almost reminds me of like Carl Hiaasen, who I love. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it almost feels like any idea the author thought of, no matter how random and out there, they were like, yeah, let's just put it in and make it work, which is exactly how I feel about Carl. So I actually mean that as a good thing. This book is weird in a great way. The third thing I liked about this one is the epilogue. I know some people are really opinionated about epilogues and whether we need them or not, or whether we should just get rid of them all together or whatever, and I'm not weighing in on epilogues in general. I'm just saying that for this book, it works, and you shouldn't skip it. It delves into character development even more than the book did. It gives you some answers that you were looking for, and it even sets up for what I assume is a pending book 2. Who do I think should read this one? If you're a fan who is interested in silly and absurd alternate dimensions, crashing with a detective novel, I mean, I think you're really just going to love this one. If you like silly and absurd and that sounds like fun to you, you should read this book. I also think that if you're a reader who likes that tongue-in-cheek sort of humor, you might really enjoy this one. My rating, I had to give this one 3 stars. That's the rating I reserve for books that are a little more niche audiences. Not everyone is going to love this one, but if you like that tongue-in-cheek humor, you should definitely give this one a try. So 3 stars for Duckett and Dyer, Dicks for Hire by G.M. Nair. This next book was the book on my TBR with the highest reader average on Goodreads. The next book I read in the month of May was Sex, Death, God, But Not in That Order by Tom Leveen. This was independently published by FTJ Creative in 2017. It is a young adult age category contemporary novel, and it is 221 pages. This book had the highest reader average going into this month. This book was actually republished later on in 2017 under a new title, A Little Insurrection Now and Then, and got a new cover. This title is no longer available. When you're looking for this book, you will now look for it with this fancy new cover. Your synopsis. How hard is it not to get kicked out of private school? Sophomore John Matthew finds out in this hilarious novel full of pranks, snark, and emotion. So what didn't I like about this one? One of the only things I can say I didn't like about this one is that you're going to have to dig for the lessons. Okay, full disclosure, I actually love this, especially in YA. Teens do not want to be hit over the head with morality lessons. We want to find them. We want to dig for them, right? And if you're reading it with a class or reading it with a group, you like finding it with them and digging through it with them. They're not hit you over the head morals in this book, which I love. But if you're of the opinion that all books need a strong moral, that might bother you as a negative. The second thing I want to point out, and it's kind of a content warning, is that this book features teens being bad. Again, I have no problem with that. It's honest, it's real, and you know that Tom Leveen writes books like that. The teens aren't going to all behave themselves. They're going to be honest, they're going to be real, they're going to be up to bad antics sometimes. But again, if you feel like that's not appropriate for a young adult, or if that bothers you, maybe steer clear of this one. But I didn't mind it. So what did I like about this one? The first one, oh my gosh, the sarcasm just drips from this main character. I adore that. I love when a character can be sarcastic and be snarky, and it comes off the page like you're having a conversation with a real snarky person. It was awesome. I laughed out loud more than once in this book. This kid goes to a school that he's never gone to before. It's a religious school, and every time he mentions it, he gives it a different, it's not its real name, sarcastic name, and every time it made me laugh out loud, and I loved it. Second thing I liked about this book is that, it was emotional. It was like punch you in the gut, make you cry emotional. I wasn't expecting it. And you know what? I should expect this from Tom Leveen now. And I don't know, I think I just got comfortable in that fun, relaxed feeling that this book has going for it. And so it just surprised me, and it was a sucker punch. But I loved it, and it was important. The third thing I liked about this book, and this is such a big one, these characters just steal your heart. They are well-written, they're angsty teens. Tom writes characters like that better than probably anybody. It's the reason why he's one of my favorite authors. This time around, I could not even pick a character. They are all amazing. John, Bill, Lauren, Molly, these characters, they just grabbed me, and I wanted to be immersed in their world, and I wanted to be friends with them and hang out with them at this park. I mean, they're just well-written, they're deep characters, and I adore them. Tom writes teenagers so incredibly well. Who do I think should read this one? I mean, everyone. Seriously, and I know I don't say that a lot, but everyone, especially because I just found out that this book with this cover under this title is now free from Tom's website. So, there's no reason why you shouldn't read it. It's completely free. I'll make sure I drop a link to this one in my blog, which I will link in the description so that you can grab that one free. I also think if you are someone who likes your books to be emotional, you're going to love this one. If you are a reader who can appreciate a good joke and some snarky teens, this should be at the top of your TBR. You're going to love it. My rating? I had to give this one 5 stars. This book grabs you and it doesn't let you go, and you will keep thinking about it after you close that page. It is highly, highly recommended. So 5 stars for A Little Insurrection Now and Then by Tom Leveen. All right, watchers, you just heard me give this book 5 stars. That means if you have a book that you think is similar to this book, please make sure you drop the name of the book and the author down below in the comments, because I'll be choosing books based on this one for next month's TBR. The next book I read in the month of May was Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. This was an adult age category romance. It's published in 2012 by Pamela Doran Books, and it is 369 pages. Your synopsis. Louisa Clark is an ordinary girl living an ordinary life. But when she loses her job and takes one caring for wheelchair-bound Will Trainer, her life will never be the same. So what didn't I like about this one? Oh, these are going to be unpopular opinions, aren't they? Here we go. This book to me felt out of touch. Books that make it out as though you cannot be happy unless you have boatloads of money always get under my skin and rub me the wrong way. It turns out that is something I have a huge problem with, and I think I knew that. I don't like giving spoilers on this channel, even for 8-year-old books that are also movies, but I will say that the message that comes through on this one loud and clear is that you cannot be happy without money. Lou is told repeatedly and even eventually ends the book learning that she is not happy without it. And I don't like that. It just bothered me. The second thing I can say I didn't like about this one is that you're multiple point of view for this book, except for the point of view that you really need. I've said before that I actually like multiple point of view books, and honestly, I really do, but this one really didn't work for me. I think part of the reason why it didn't work for me is because we got some point of views that added nothing to the story. Like, for example, Mrs. Trainer. She added nothing to the story. I didn't need it. And the one point of view that I think we really, really, really needed was never put into the story. Ever. I think it's not fair to tell Will's story without ever hearing from Will. Technically, people are going to tell me, yeah, but this is Louisa's story. Okay, great, fine. But one of the main points in this story is that Will doesn't want other people telling his story, directing his life, telling his narrative now that he's in a wheelchair. And really, didn't we do that? Didn't we tell his story and give his narrative without ever giving him a chance to even do a chapter? I think if this book would have been much stronger with just one chapter from Will strategically placed. And I just couldn't get away from that. The third thing I can say bothered me about this one is I feel like it suffers from representation issues. It felt to me like it was trying to sell the idea that Will's life, now that he's disabled, was no longer worth living. In fact, that straight up message was mentioned by more than one character in this book. More than one character actually made that comment, that if they had to live like that, they would rather be dead. And I cannot, at the end of the day, get behind that message. No matter what pretty package you wrap it up in, I just can't get behind that message. So what did I like about this book? Because like I said, it's wrapped in a pretty package. So what's that pretty package? The first one is the language. I have read other books by Jojo Moyes before, and I think I've said this about her before. She does write a beautiful sentence. She has a knack for sculpting a sentence in a really just beautiful way. Almost you have to pause and read it again because it's just so pretty. She also writes descriptions really well. She makes countryside sound absolutely beautiful. You feel like you're right there with her. She just has a knack for writing, which is great. Second thing I liked about this book is Louisa herself is a remarkable character. She's really well written. She's quirky. She's funny. She's adorable. She's okay with not being like everyone else in the world and having her own differences. At the same time, she's not happy with her life, and she's not happy with how mundane that is, and that's okay. She's relatable in that. She's relatable in the way she deals with that, I think. The third thing I can say I liked about this one is I do like that it does controversy. I've always been one to enjoy books about controversial topics. I love it when an author can take a controversy and shove it in the reader's face and make us think about it in a different way. It's one of the reasons why Jodi Picoult is one of my favorite authors. This one, forcing us to re-examine how we might feel about assisted suicide, I applaud it for that. I really do. And I think with just a few more twists and a few changes, it might have been a book that I loved, I think. Who do I think should read this one? If you love heavily emotional, controversial stories above all else, and you are okay with some of those deeper issues being wrapped in a pretty package, I think, like most readers, you'll probably like this one more than I did. My rating, I had to give this one 2 stars. Lots of people feel differently. I know this is a controversial opinion. Please feel free to tell me about it in the comments. That's okay. But for me, that representation and that message were just hugely problematic for me, and I couldn't get past it. So 2 stars for Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. The next book I read in the month of May was The Mall by Megan McCafferty. This is a young adult age category contemporary novel. It's coming in July of 2020 from Wednesday Books, and it is 320 pages. Thank you to NetGalley and Wednesday Books for providing me with an electronic advanced reader copy in exchange for this honest review. Your synopsis. It's 1991, and Cassie Worthy is excited to spend her final summer before college working at the mall alongside her boyfriend, Troy. She has just 6 weeks before they move to New York to begin the plan they've already agreed on. But things in life don't usually adhere to a plan. Cassie is about to have her entire life turned upside down. So what didn't I like about this one? Well, the first thing I can say I didn't like is I wasn't crazy about the writing style. I have never read anything else by McCafferty before, at least not that I remember. But this one had some severely awkward moments. There are things written in all caps. There's a huge emphasis on the way one character laughs. And there's constant plays on calling one particular character a ghost. It's uncomfortably awkward because I felt like we were essentially making fun of these characters for something like their unique laugh or for the way they dress. And that made the book a little uncomfortable for me. The second thing I can say I didn't like about this one is I had an always in the back of my mind question running of who is this book written for? Like, who is the audience? Because the book itself reads like it's written for teenagers around like 18, the same as Cassie. But this book is packed with references that those teens are not going to get, and like these nostalgic moments that almost make it feel like it's for somebody maybe even a little older than me who was an 18-year-old in 1991. So it was weird because the language is written like it should be for someone who was a teenager in 91, but yet the book itself feels like it would appeal more to the emotional age of a teenager now who wouldn't get the references. So the audience question was a little troublesome. The third thing I can say I didn't like about this one, and this was kind of a big one, I don't like Cassie. And she's our main character, and I think we're supposed to, and I didn't like her. She's snobby, she's self-centered, and honestly, she's an all-around bad toxic friend in every aspect. She judges other people really harshly. She bails on people who are supposed to be her friends. She never even bothers to actually learn Sam's name. She doesn't tell Drea the truth. And she thinks a makeover can fix everything. I mean, Cassie and I would not have been friends. Not a person I liked. So what did I like about this story? The first thing I can say I liked is the friendship angle. Yes, there's boy drama and there's sex in this young adult book. But that's not the message that you get. At the end of the day, this book is really about Cassie learning to be friends and learning what friendship really is and learning what that means. And if you dig for that message, it's a good message. The second thing I can say I liked about this one is the early 90s nostalgia. So I hesitate to mention this because, like I said, I think it's at odds with the target age group for the book. But this book is packed with references to movies, shows, actors, and even more that you might remember if you were around in the early 90s. Who do I think should read this one? If you are someone who was alive in the early 90s and you're interested in taking a trip down memory lane and you don't mind a little teeny boppering, you might enjoy this one even more than I did. If you are a teenage reader and you don't mind reading about the 90s, or maybe you even like it, maybe you're even interested in that time period, this one is fun and it has a good message about friendship, and I think you would really relate to the emotion in this one. My rating? I had to give this one 3 stars. I feel like it paints itself into a very specific niche and almost like the readership is at odds with itself, but at the end of the day, it's a good book, and I think you might enjoy it if you fall into that niche. So 3 stars for The Mall by Megan McCafferty. This next book had been on my TBR list the longest before this month started. The next book I read for the month of May, which is the 8th for May, I believe, but the 5th for this video, is The Weight of Silence by Heather Gudenkauf. This is an adult age category mystery thriller. It was published in 2008 by Mira, and it is 373 pages. Before this month started, this was actually the oldest book on my TBR. Your synopsis. It happens one quiet August morning in a small Iowa town. 2 families awaken to find their little girls have gone missing in the night. So what didn't I like about this one? The first thing I can say I didn't like is that it has some stereotypical characters. There's a few characters who just drop themselves conveniently into molds here. The battered wife, the drunk husband, the small town deputy who's the voice of reason and knows the town better than anyone. Those characters are people we've seen before in other books like this. I felt like I'd met them before. I felt like they were well-loved and well-used tropes. The second thing that I didn't particularly like about this one is that we're dealing with a selfish mother. Okay, all mothers are selfish, sometimes myself included, but this mother seems to have spent her entire life being selfish until the morning where she wakes up and realizes her kids are gone. And she might have messed up. To be fair, she realizes later and calls herself out on this mistake and even points out that she's been a little selfish, but it made her a highly unlikable character right from the beginning. The third thing I can say I didn't like about this one, and for me this was kind of a big one, this book has way too much backstory. I like backstory, usually, but in this case I felt like it was way too much. I'm not sure how all the bathroom incidences and the trips to the nurse and all that features into this story. I don't know how it's relevant to anything. I don't know why we even needed to know it, and what it ended up doing is just slowing down the story a lot. So what did I like about this one? The first thing I can say I liked is Callie and Petra's friendship, and I really liked that. Callie and Petra are two little girls relying on each other so much, and it's refreshing. It's a fun angle. I like the quick little details that were dropped in, like the examples from the older brother of times when the two girls almost seemed to be reading each other's minds. I thought that was fun, and it added a great angle to the story and almost upped the stakes a little. Second thing I liked about this one, and this is a big one, is Ben. I really, really liked Ben. He's an older brother character. He is well written. He's patient, but he's not perfect. He loves his sister. He wants what's best for her, but he's also occasionally completely annoyed by her, and he makes no qualms about that. I just liked him right from the start. He's the most refreshingly honest character in the story, and he was definitely my favorite. Who do I think should read this one? If you're a reader who likes an emotional mystery story that's going to have characters who jump right out at you, give you lots of angles, and have you trying to piece it together, you're going to like this one. If you normally read contemporary stories, but you want to try like mystery light, you may like this one. It's labeled as a mystery, but honestly, most of this story is about piecing together a really broken family that's a total mess, and so I think contemporary readers are really going to like that. My rating? I had to give this one 3 stars. It's a good book, and I think it's going to appeal to the right reader, but it falls to that niche of people who like contemporary family drama and mystery. So 3 stars for The Weight of Silence by Heather Gudenkauf. Okay, that is it for the next books that I read in May. I'm sure there will be more coming at you soon. If you are an author or a publisher who had a part in bringing a book to life that you'd like me to review right here on this channel, check in the description for a link to a Google form where you can give me the name of that book and some other information, as well as agree to my rating scale, and we'll see if we can get it reviewed. I should warn you that we're backed up pretty far in reviews on this channel. We're scheduling out pretty far in advance, but if you have an audiobook available, let me know, because the waiting list for those is actually shorter. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment to let me know you're still here. Hit subscribe and tap that little bell so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your own dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye! Regular watchers of this channel will already know this, but I do book reviews every time I've read 5 books. You should know that I don't read just one specific age category or genre. I'm actually a reader of pretty much anything. So I will make sure to tell you what age category, what genre it is, and more importantly, what kind of readers I think will love the book that I'm reviewing. I do use a 5-star rating system to review all my books, so I'd like to take a quick second to tell you about that system. 5-star ratings are reserved for books that I absolutely love, that I think transcend genre. In other words, you might love this one even if you don't normally read the genre it's written in. 4-star books, on the other hand, are books that I absolutely love and think are great books, but they're more specific to the genre they are written for. 3-star ratings are for books that I think are good books, but they have a really niche audience. You might not love this one, even if you normally read this genre. 2-star ratings are the ratings I reserve for books that I think are problematic. I do try to explain some of the problems in the what I didn't love section so that you know if it's the kind of thing that would really bother you or not. 1-star rating, on the other hand, are reserved for books that I honestly didn't enjoy and can't recommend. They're just not for me.